the upper left. So that's where I'm seeing the upper left from.
Well, I mean, I guess.
So the idea here, though, is that again, it hurts and it's not able to hunt effectively.
It would explain if they were brothers, if they were related, right? It wouldn't be so crazy that they both had this thing, but it would also explain why, as they matured, they continued to rely on each other because they weren't effective hunters, so they had to work as a team to be effective. Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
It's not unusual. Typically, when an animal does start attacking human populations, like say a mountain lion here in the States, it's usually because he's old and sick, and he just can't go after the normal stuff anymore, like deer.
But that's the thing, is that these lions, they weren't old. So that's one thing, is they weren't old. But the injury, the idea that there's an injury makes sense. I gotta say, though, is that if a lion's jaws are so injured that from 2 years prior or a year prior to being killed, that's a long time before these camps of people showed up. Now, maybe it's scavenging on other stuff and that's how they're getting along, but I'm curious about how they got to the time frame that they assigned for the age. The researcher talked about the fact that they saw there was erosion on the teeth around it, and the bone in the socket had begun to grow back where the tooth was at. That's how they determined it.
That makes sense.
But, I mean, does that mean that it was painful and incapable of using its jaw? That's what I'm questioning.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a combination of things. I'm just advocating for all of these tonight. Maybe it's a combination of, so the railroad construction, it made the slave trade take a step back. So maybe what was happening is, the slave trade was getting slaves picked off by these lions before when they were going through their territory. Or their dead bodies, or maybe a combination of both. And if you're partaking in an illegal slave trade, you're not necessarily going to be like, yeah, it's weird, the lions keep stealing these people that I totally own. You're just going to say, oh, it's the cost of business, oh no.
Yeah, apparently it was, the traders were Arab, the slave traders that were coming through that area, and that's the route that they were taking.
I mean, so I guess that would help us get to this timeline of they had been living on humans or
but the
easier
slave trade didn't start getting knocked back as much until the rail line was finished.
Okay. Well, I mean, that still doesn't necessarily present a problem. But it also, I guess, on top of that, you can say, but on the other hand, yeah, if one of them drugged a goat that was attached to a railroad tie, you wouldn't think that if their mouth was in intense pain, they'd be able to drag that kind of weight.
I think that probably maybe it got a little better over time, or maybe they were just used to it,
or
they're just really badass and tough.
Or Patterson was a liar.
He
Edit a word out there.
Because that's the other thing, is that I have to imagine that he wrote these accounts, at least the original versions that went into the papers, he probably sat down and wrote those from his journal or memory, and then, of course, had to spice them up to get them bought.
Yeah, well, it's not as interesting a story if you say these two lions were taking out humans because they were too sickly to take on any other prey, and I totally killed them. It's way more, badass to say, yeah, and it was capable of dragging a goat attached to a railroad tie. It was so strong and virile that and I took it down with 9 shots. That's a way better story.
It is a better story, but I was going to say, if I was going to put a goat out there for bait, I would totally tie it to a railroad tie. It makes sense, because it's going to slow the lion way down when you go drag it away.
Apparently not slow enough for Patterson to shoot it.
By the way, I do want to point out with the whole, it took 9 shots to take it down. He says that with the last 2 shots, I think he shot it in the head with the last 2 shots, but it was so aggressive and it wanted him so badly that it was leaning against a branch or a log and was gnawing at the branch or log, this hunk of wood, as it was trying to get at it. Have you ever seen like a cat that lays there that's trying to get something and it's biting at it? Yeah. Except this is the big version of it. That's what he's saying. But so these are things that I point out. I bring up these descriptions in his story because it makes me stop and go,
Yeah, he may have botched it up a little bit, but
Yeah, that's really colorful writing.
Yeah.
Really colorful writing is actually what gives us our final theory, because we actually have one more, which is that they were bloodthirsty animals who had developed a taste for humans or maybe were just insane. Because that's what Patterson said.
I'd say they acted pretty sane, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't think that they were. If totally insane, they would have just been coming into the camp constantly, stealthy, and they were really, really smart in how they went about stealing or getting their food. I shouldn't say stealing, getting their food.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Tsavo lions were insane. I mean, like I said, he made a career out of hunting other lions. After that, there's all these supposed man-eaters that had killed a couple of people. I think that part of the problem, though, is that all these supposed man-hunters we're expanding. And we're expanding into their natural territory. And what happens when humans and other animals collide? Well, usually the people lose it first because we're dumb and ignorant, but eventually, just through sheer numbers, we
That's
win.
superior firepower.
Yes, and so I think that's why all of these lions that are called man killers and man eaters and insane, they're actually not. They're pushed to a breaking point, and they have to survive because that's what their natural instinct is.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
My personal opinion is that I think that these I kind of fall in line with the slave trade. I think that gave them an idea of humans, at least for these two, particularly in that area, as, this is a normal food source, okay. The other ones I'm not so sure about.
I like the cattle plague.
Huh?
Yeah.
Cattle plague is good.
I mean, not like I don't like it.
I'm Facebook friends with the cattle plague,
We're
and they
besties.
put up the best posts ever.
We go out to drink sometimes. It's great.
Oh, cattle plague tales, the best jokes.
Really, it's true.
Yeah.
How about
Right.
you, Joe?
Maybe some combination of all of them. Even I hate to sound wishy-washy here. The cattle plague, I think, is a good one because they had plenty to snack on. They didn't need to actually go eat people. And then boom, all that goes. And, well, you got to go find food somewhere, and these guys come waltzing in. So
Conveniently driving right through the middle of their territory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Mystery solved.
There we go. So let's go ahead and give the important bits that I know people really like to hear us repeat every week.
Yeah.
We have a website.
iTunes emailed.
Yeah, we have a website. The website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com, where, of course, you can look at links that we will put up for some of our research, as well as listening to any of the past episodes. We are on iTunes, as well as a bunch of the other streaming services like Google Play and any other service that you might be able to use. If you're on iTunes, do take the time to leave a comment and a rating. That's how other people find us. If the streaming,
Good one.
yeah,
Good rating.
preferably a good one. If you've got something that you don't agree with, write us an email so that we can have a discussion about it, because we can't talk through comments. They're a one-way conversation.
And what is that email?
Well, that email is something that I'll tell you in a minute.
Oh, fine.
I was going to say, if you're using any of the other streaming services and they allow you to comment and rating, do the same as we asked to do in iTunes. That way, everybody who's using that service can find out about us. If you want to write us an email, you can do that. The email address that Joe was prompting me to give you is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. We take story suggestions, we take feedback, we take general accolades. We will always respond to every email, though it may take us days to get to you, and that's not a reflection of you. That's our workload, but we respond to everybody.
And by the way, if you're listening, say 5 years from now, we've got 20 million listeners. That might not be the case anymore. Just FYI.
Yeah. But currently, as of this recording, that's
As
what
of
we're doing.
2016.
Yes. Now, we are on social media, so we have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. So like the page, join the group. There's always fun stuff going on there. We're on Twitter, Thinkin' Sideways. Devin's always sending out weird Snapchat photos of herself.
Truth.
Because it's a thing now.
Yeah.
We have a subreddit, so there are conversations. If you're a Redditor, that's a place for you to go as well. And last but most importantly, not least, for support of the show, we have a couple of different ways that you can do that. You can buy merchandise, so shirts, stickers, anything like that.
Coffee mugs.
Coffee mugs, those are available through Zazzle, which there's a link to that on the website in the right-hand panel. If you want to contribute directly to the show, we have PayPal, so you can make a one-time donation through PayPal of whatever you are able or comfortable with. If you want to go ahead and do a recurring donation, that's going to happen through Patreon. It's patreon.com/thinkingsideways. Patreon is a system or a service where you pledge how much you want to contribute, and every time we put on a new episode, that's what you're going to contribute. So I say that so that if you say, I'm going to give you $10, and you put that into Patreon, that's going to be $10 an episode, and we put out 4 episodes a month on a normal month. So that's going to be, you got to do the math there. So whatever works for you and you are comfortable with, and by no means is any of this required. It is totally voluntary, and we appreciate everybody who has and is currently donating to the show. It's amazing how much easier that makes that for all of us.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it does cost a little bit.
It does.
Yeah.
So that having been said, we're going to get out of here and look at Joe's crystal cat collection that he has bought with donations from Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. We are, though, going to get out of here, and so we will talk to you guys all next week.
Yeah, meow.
Let's go see your menagerie. Your glass menagerie.
Ooh, that's right.
Let's go to the catacombs, because it's perfect.
Oh, man. I don't have anything.
Roar!
So, yeah,
Well, I think it's 3 o'clock.
It's like 3. Let me see what
When
my...
you are ready.
When I'm done getting this eyelash out.
Yeah, it's precisely 3 o'clock, according to my phone.
Exactly.
I guess we better get rolling here.
All right.
First off, actually, before you go, sorry to interrupt. Is there anybody here from Indiana? Hey. Hi,
Cool.
folks. So we're going to do an Indiana mystery.
That Joe's already told people about.
I haven't told you, though. So that's the important thing.
So we are doing this as a live taping. So we're going to do as much or as little noise as you want. You guys ready? Okay.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
I brought the aliens.
You must not learn what you have learned.
I don't know. Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey there. Welcome to a very special episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as usual by
Steve.
And Joe.
and we're going to talk about a mystery.
And we're joined also, I should say, by a live studio audience. Guys, say hi.
It's a group of very loud 5
That was
people.
kind of that was kind of too loud. Okay, let's do that again. Guys, say hi.
Yay, whatever, it's cool.
No, thanks. That was a
here.
good round of applause. Appreciate that.
We're going to talk about a mystery. It's a local mystery. Well, it's it took place in Indiana, so it's local.
Brown County. Anybody here from Brown County?
Good.
Okay.
Great.
Kind of south of here
Dodged a
somewhere.
bullet there.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the case of Clarence Roberts' death. Is anybody familiar with that case? The death of Clarence Roberts?
You guys haven't heard about Clarence Roberts?
All right.
They're
Well,
You're in for a treat.
Joe, why don't you tell them a little bit about Clarence Roberts?
Let me give you. It says Joe Shatner style. My Shatner imitation kind of sucks, so I'm just going to read it. So early in the hours of October 15th, 1970, a shed, which was being used as a garage on Roberts' property in Brown County, caught fire. And volunteer firefighters came by and tried to put it out.
They haven't left the basement yet.
No, not yet. Not around here. But the only thing they were able to save was Clarence's pickup truck. He had a pickup truck parked in there. They wheeled that out and saved it, but didn't save Clarence, who perished in the fire, along with 2 other cars. But then the next day, after things had cooled down a little bit, they were coming through the ashes, and they found an interesting surprise, which was a burned, limbless body of a man. Apparently Clarence Roberts, and the body was laying on his back, had a 16-gauge shotgun laying across his chest. But investigators were also sifting through the ash, and they found a Masonic ring buried in the ash, not far from the body.
Completely undamaged.
Nah, not completely, but pretty much undamaged. And Clarence, of course, was a Mason. He was like a 33-degree like Grand
We forgot
Poobah.
to talk
Yeah.
to our experts about this. So.
Yeah, but it was in pretty good shape for having been through a fire. Clarence Roberts was a local businessman. He and his brother owned a small local chain of hardware feed stores called, I think, the Roberts Lumber Company. So obviously sold a little lumber too. They were pretty well to do. They had 4 children, all boys, and owned a nice house and a lot of nice luxury cars. And also Clarence had several life insurance policies, which was lucky for his family when he died. So it's time to collect the life insurance, right? And this is like, it was valued at like more than $1 million. This is 1970.
So like $6 million now.
Yeah, or $1 billion or
Not
something like
nothing.
that. So all they had to do was collect that money. But there was a hitch. There was a fly in the ointment.
Yeah, they didn't quite get that. So tragedy would hit the family again 10 years later when another fire would destroy a shack that was it owned by the Roberts family?
It was
Yeah.
It was down in Camp Roberts. Anybody heard about Camp Roberts? Southeast, about 2 miles southeast of Nashville, Indiana. A little place that's mostly owned by the Roberts family apparently, and the family and the shack was owned by her nephew.
Okay. I knew somebody in the family owned it.
Yeah, she was staying there rent-free.
So the
apparently.
Roberts' shack.
Yeah,
Another
somebody in the
Roberts
family owned that
yes.
shack. Yeah.
Another one burns down. This time, however, there are 2 bodies. Well, that was loud. The first body was identified as Geneva Roberts, Clarence's wife, and the second body was identified as that of Clarence Roberts.
Dun dun dun. No? Ah. Hi.
Hey. Hey.
What's up?
I didn't know we had service up here.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
It's great. Sorry,
I would
everyone.
do this and use their water instead of my water.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
You guys wanted an unedited show, right?
Yes,
That's-
we're asked for this
Great.
all the time, so this is what you get. So as we said, this life insurance policy they had tried to collect, the family had, but the insurance company had decided that there were some things wrong that made them not believe that it was gonna be Clarence's body. So Geneva didn't get any of the money, so she was left essentially penniless at that point. They, had to sell the family home. The cars were repossessed, or I think the brothers that owned them actually took them back for some of those cars.
Yeah, one of them was taken back by his creditors. I talked to a lawyer who knew the Roberts, and he told me this story about they were in court, and Clarence was being confronted by one of his creditors. And suddenly the creditor's lawyer says, "Clarence, how'd you get here today?" And Clarence said, "I drove." And the lawyer turned to the judge and said, "Your Honor, we want that car." And so the judge made Clarence hand over the keys to his Cadillac right there in court. That's how deep in. Clarence was living beyond his means, way beyond his means.
And Uber wasn't a thing yet.
No.
So
Yeah, and so
getting home was not fun.
a humiliating moment for poor Clarence Roberts.
Yes. Well, and especially for Geneva, because she and the family had been trying to collect on the insurance for now 10 years and hadn't got it. So at this point, she has to take a job. She is working at the Howard Johnson's. I believe she's working in the kitchen washing dishes.
Or baking pies. I've heard that story too.
Okay. Her children abandoned her. The entire family shunned her. So she was on her own at that point.
So we're going to play this one a little fast and loose. And we're going to try to add to the story as we talk about theories.
That doesn't mean
So-
we're going to make stuff up. But
Well,
by
we
adding-
never do that.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
a little.
We wouldn't do that.
So I'm just gonna, I'm hosting, so we've got some bullet points here. I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about the high level of what the theories might be, and then we're gonna get into it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So we need to talk about Clarence. We need to talk about if he died in the first fire or the second fire.
There are people out there, by the way, who still believe Clarence did die in the first fire.
Yep. We need to talk about Clarence and if he set the first fire or the second fire, or we need to talk about if he didn't die in the first fire, where did he go? And then we need to talk about Geneva, because it seems like she should have known about this, right?
You would think.
But maybe not. So let's talk about this.
Sweet.
First theory would be Clarence died in the first fire.
Yeah. This does not have a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
Well, there's a really, really good reason. I don't know if we had talked about the fact that when the body was found, we'd said that, there was no limbs. It's believed that those were burned off. I know, Joe, through your conversations with, was it the prosecutor?
Yeah, I actually was lucky enough to track down a guy named James T. Roberts. He says he's no relation to Clarence, but he was the county prosecutor in 1970 when this happened. He told me there's stories on the internet that somebody actually chopped off the arms and legs from the body and then put it in the barn and set the fire. But
and you will see where it says there's like marks on the bones.
Yeah, apparently that's not true, according to somebody who was